Hello, everybody. It is Dr. D, and welcome to another episode of Teacher Prep with Dr. D. Tonight, I have Jeff Becker. Jeff is a instructor of social emotional learning. He is a former secondary, middle school, and high school teacher. He's all the way live from Florida, and he's here tonight to talk to us about SEL, aka social emotional learning. Jeff, thank you so much for coming on the show. How are you doing this evening?
No, thank you, Patricia. What's going on? I'm excited to be here. I'm an early bird. I usually wake up at about 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. So it's 9 p.m. here in Florida, and this is way past my bedtime. I feel like I'm like doing something against the rules. So I'm excited. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be talking with somebody amazing like you that's making a big difference in education. So thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. You know, every day I wake up and I say, how am I going to live my day? How am I going to make a difference? And what am I going to bring into this profession to really shape teachers' practice and the impact it has on students? So it's wonderful to have you on the show. We haven't had anyone on the show talking about SEL.
All right.
I know there's a lot of buzz about SEL, but translating that into the classroom can be a challenge. So
Sure.
for our viewers out there that aren't familiar with SEL, just break it down, what it is, why is it important?
Got you. All right. So I'll take it from a very high level because you're right. It is a buzzword. And if you've been in education for any extended period of time, buzzwords come and go. You know, like the last decade was like bullying or like character education. Now there are about 1 billion acronyms: PBIS, SEL, ESE, ESOL, all of these wild things. So let me talk a little bit about social and emotional learning, what it is and what it's not. An amazing metaphor that really made a lot of sense for me is this. So imagine that you work for a NASCAR pit crew, right? And the cars are just wow, wow, wow around the track. And then the car comes in and you go and you tell the driver, here's the advice, get back out there and just stay in first place and go. All right, now go. And they're looking at you and they're like, what? And you're like, go. And they're like, no, I need tires. I need gas. I need my brakes changed. There's something rattling. My car's pulling to the left. Social and emotional learning is believing that when we improve the parts of the vehicle, it performs better. Does that make sense, Patricia?
I love it. Yeah.
You can't just tell a kid, you can't just tell a kid or an adult, because social and emotional learning is it's 5 life competencies or social and emotional learning competencies, and it doesn't stop at 5th grade or 8th grade or 12th grade or I'm 39 years old. It doesn't stop. So here are the big 5. These are what all social and emotional learning lessons should be. You ready? Self-awareness. All right, so self-awareness, knowing yourself, knowing what you're great at, knowing what you're not great at, knowing who you are. They say a lion's roar can be heard miles and miles, sometimes even hundreds of miles away if they're in the right acoustic situation. You know why a lion roars so loud? Because it knows who it is, right? It's confident. It knows it's the king. So self-awareness, knowing who you are and how you were built. The second thing is self-management. Self-management is, all right, now I know myself. I'm going to put myself in the best position to win. Knowing your strengths, knowing your weaknesses, knowing where to go, where not to go. The third one, social awareness, understanding the way that the world works. This is the one that I think we kind of failed to test in the last couple of years, as everything is so highly politicized. Is that we live in a free country unless somebody else doesn't believe what we believe. And then we say something nasty about that. So it's like, hey, no, it's a free country, and people get to say things and do things and believe things and wear things, and that is our world, especially here in America. That's our world, and it's a free country, and it's amazing. And here's the way that this country works, and it's nothing politicized about it in SEL. So don't hear what I'm not saying. It's just teaching students about not only about society like that, but just the social norms, social cues, the way that you're supposed to carry yourself, the way that you're supposed to behave in society. So that's social awareness. The next one is relationship skills. We see a huge uptick in students not getting along in the classroom this year for a lot of different reasons. But students aren't getting along with each other. They're not getting along with their teachers, and they're not getting along with their parents. So relationship skills, basic stuff.
Absolutely.
And then finally, if you're a secondary teacher, you're going to be like, amen. But the last one's decision making, helping students to make better decisions. I know when I was a teenager, and I make questionable decisions. I have to like really stop myself and think and go through a process. So that's social emotional learning. It's helping kids. It's giving them the tools that they need to succeed in and out of the classroom.
Right. And so, I mean, essentially, these 5 key components that you highlighted, they need to be explicitly taught. I mean, for the most part, kids are going to come into the classroom and know how to do these things, unless perhaps they've done some prior experiences. Maybe they were in, the Boy Scouts, or maybe they had some experiences on a soccer team, but without really knowing what funds of knowledge the kids are bringing into the classroom, it can be really difficult as a classroom teacher to be able to decide what you're going to teach and how you're going to teach it and who needs what. So do you have any advice for that?
That's right. So one of the things that really drove me up a wall in my journey as a school counselor and a teacher at middle school and high school, when teachers say, and I'm guilty of this too, I'm not throwing shade at teachers or anything like that, but when teachers say this, it drives me up a wall. They go, well, they should know better.
Right.
Well, here's the thing. I agree. They should, but they don't. And that's where we're at. It's like, we just have to know where we're at. And like, yes, they obviously don't know. And so here's the thing is that I understand when you're an educator and you're a math specialist, right, Patricia? So I don't expect a math teacher to just stop what they're doing. And because I know the clock's always ticking in public education, and there's a pacing guide, and you're in PLC meetings, and you're 2 lessons behind the other section. And I totally understand that tension, but there are very simple ways that you can do these. So if you have a minute, I'd love to tell you and some of the viewers just some easy examples just to kind of dispel the myths of SEL and how hard it is. Does that sound okay?
No, that's exactly what we want to hear. We want to break it down to that level. Like, okay, what can I do tomorrow? Because as you know, it's the holiday season, and I don't know about you, but it seems like there's this heightened level of stress and trying to get stuff done. So when we're in that mindset, right, which skill would that be? Like having that mindset.
Mindset would be self-awareness and self-management. Usually there would be a growth mindset. There's a lot talked about growth mindset. So what I would tell you, here are some things that you can do immediately. And so they aren't things on top of the things that you're already doing. They're things, if you're doing something, you would do this in place of the thing that you're already doing. So don't worry about like extra tasks, because I get it. It's like, if you give me one more thing to do as a teacher, I'm just going to lose my marbles. So just little things, and don't discount these because they're little and easy. Say, oh, well, really? So, I mean, just like really giving your kids a genuine greeting on the way in the classroom.
Absolutely.
So that's an easy one. You're probably supposed to do that. And I know that sometimes in the middle of classes, sometimes you have to like make a break for the bathroom because you haven't peed in 4 periods. But really give kids very specific compliments. And here's the big reason why behind this and some other strategy I'd like to unpack. Make a kid seen. Make a kid believe that you see them, you know them, and that they're represented in the school. So I'm gonna talk a little bit, and let me unpack a couple other strategies. So, for instance, having something in your classroom that represents each student. And so it could be something cultural, sure, or it could be like, Draw me a picture of your favorite thing to do when you get done school. If it's like video games, or do you play football, or do you like to draw anime? Do you like
Sure.
show me who you are, and I want to show you that you have a place in my classroom, that you
Right.
belong here. You're a part of this class. You're a part of this culture. You belong here. In other words, does that make sense? So again, it's not saying, hey, Patricia, I know that you're teaching polynomials today, but we're going to do some kumbaya stuff for 40 minutes. And I know you have state standardized tests to hit at the end of the year, but we're going to do some fluffy stuff. It's not that.
Right. And I think it can be hard for teachers, because if it's the middle of the year and my routine has been like, you come in the class, you sit down, you do the warm up, and then I start my direct instruction. It's like, now I'm at the door, and my kids, as you know, everybody's, well, actually, you're in Florida. I don't know if people are wearing masks, but wear mask on all day. Like, it's the party mask here. Like, that's it. You have to wear your mask on all day, whether you're vaxxed or not vaxxed. So I can't even see these kids' faces.
Yeah.
And I can I give them a handshake? Like, and now I'm greeting them at the door. It kind of like, how do you move past that, like, feeling as a teacher? Like, this is really awkward.
That's right. That's right. So there are a million ways to make a kid seem. So if that's not your jam,
I think that's a great jam. I think it's a great jam, but I'm saying that I think as a teacher, you need to kind of own that space of like, I'm going to be present in that moment to like make that eye contact. And as you shared, let them know that they're seen, and step away from that thinking where like, I have to be teaching all these skills, and my students are 2 years behind because they didn't learn anything over these past 18 months. And what you're saying is like, hey, unless you have these relationships with these kiddos and they know you care about them, it doesn't matter what you have on the board.
I know. And it's weird because it is that paradox of you're in such a rush to get somewhere that you don't stop and get gas. I'm guilty of this too. I'm a go-getter. I'm a hustler. I have a middle school SEL curriculum company and a high school SEL curriculum company. And I also do a lot of keynote speaking, and I'm a professor at National University, as you know. I'm going. And I was meeting with my business mentor recently, and she was like, you got to get back into mindfulness. You got to like do some like morning meditations or something, man, because it'll really help you. It'll help you to kind of strategize your business stuff. And I'll tell you, man, it's like, I'm like, no, I don't have time to do that. Like, I got to go. But I mean, ultimately, we know these things are right for us, and we know these things are right for kids too. Like, really. So here's what I would say to that. Don't underestimate the power of 1 minute. Like right now, if we sat here dead silent, I see this timer's going, we're at about 13 and a half minutes. If I was dead silent and you were dead silent until the 14:30 mark, it would be so awkward. A quiet, like, so whatever there's another SEL strategy that only takes a minute. Students never have the time to stop, breathe, think, reflect. Give them a minute. It'll feel like an hour because we don't do it. You and I probably don't do it as much as we should. As soon as I get up in the morning, I'm showering, I'm hustling, I'm getting the kids ready for school. I get to work, I get to my desk, I start writing down notes. I got Post-it notes going, or I'm flipping through my phone, I'm checking emails, kids are coming in. And then I get home and I'm doing the family thing. And I just haven't even had a chance to just stop and just be like,
yes, that's it.
So social and emotional learning isn't kumbaya stuff. It's not weird. It's not meditation even. It's just having the self-awareness, knowing like, yo, I need a second. Or it's being self-management. It's like, hey, I know self-awareness. I know that I'm feeling a little tight in the chest. I'm feeling a little wound up from the day. I know I need to take a break, and I know how to do that.
Exactly.
Or my emotions are running high, or I've had a cranky day at work, or whatever it is. Social emotional learning is giving kids tools to, I mean, it would just be great because social and emotional learning, if you think about any problem, uh, just about any problem, I won't say any, I try not to be absolute, but most problems that teachers have, myself included, the solution to those problems are not more academics. And I know I'm speaking to a math teacher, don't yell at me, but think about it. It's behaviors. In the secondary, when I was in middle and high schools, it would be like a kid sleeping, a kid smacking the other kid on the back of the neck. It would be a kid giving, or even a kid not asking for help when you know they don't understand it. It would be a kid not paying attention and then asking for help and interrupting your flow. It would be a kid stopping you dead in the middle of your lesson and be like, "When's Memorial Day this year?" And you're like, "We're talking about two-step equations. You're talking about Memorial Day?" So most of these problems that we see as educators, the barriers that we have in order to try to get our direct instruction across, they fizzle down to social and emotional learning issues, not
Mhm.
academic issues. So if we can give the students those social and emotional tools, those skills, those life skills, imagine
Right.
how much easier it would be to deliver the content that we have to deliver. So think of it that way.
I love it. And I think one thing you emphasize is it really starts with you. I mean, it starts with like how you're showing up every day. Because if you're showing up and you're like, I need to get this done, we need to get that done, you're not really showing up for the kids, you know. And so I loved your idea of like having that like 2 minute meditation. Or one thing that I've been doing that's really been helping me is like I play Christian rock
Sure.
because I'm in this profession for giving, and I believe, and I love to listen to podcasts. There was one podcast I heard last week. It was "Giving is Living," and I'm just like,
Right.
yes, because that is why. And I know for many educators, that is why we came into this profession, because we want to give. We want
Yeah, that's right.
kids to know that they're, like you said, they're seen, they're loved, they're heard, they're cared for.
It's when we
You know,
feel our best as educators, right?
pardon?
That's when we feel our best as educators. And that's a happiness paradox. I'm writing a book right now, and that's one of the chapters is the happiness paradox is that just as humans, we feel like the more we turn up that self-preservation dial, the happier we're going to be. And especially as
Right.
educators, we are very guilty of that. And it's okay. I'm not, again, faulting anyone. I'm not shaming anyone, because that's just the culture of education. I kind of feel like is to say, no, I need this, I need that, I need more time, I need
Yes.
more money, I need a bigger house, I need a fancier car, I need this, and then I'll be happy. I need that, and then I'll be happy. But if you ever think about it, the happiest I usually am is when I do something generous for someone, when I stop and get outside myself. The other night, I went out to dinner with my wife, and on the way out, I just felt like, you know what? There was this really awesome couple sitting next to us, and it was a father and a daughter. And I was like, you know what? That is so cool. And so we just left them like a $15 gift card on their table. And we're like, hey, man, we're digging that you guys are still going out to dinner. Here's,
Aw,
and I'll tell you what, that's not so like that's for them, but that's also for me, because I
absolutely.
know that when I'm giving and I'm generous and I'm stopping and I'm seeing a student eye to eye and I'm having a heart to heart and I'm talking to kids about stuff and I'm really digging into their lives, I know that maybe it might take a little bit from my performance, but I know I'm gonna be over the moon. I'm gonna be happy. I'm gonna be excited. I'm gonna feel fulfilled. I'm gonna be thinking,
Absolutely.
"Oh, there goes my light." I'm gonna be thinking, "I'll just crank up my shutter speed on this."
Well,
Um, but that's when I think people feel their best.
mhm. And I don't think we, I think we know that there's a ton of research out there. Actually, Casel has done a lot of that for us to show that that emotional learning is strongly correlated with cognitive engagement, right?
Yeah,
So the
yeah,
more emotionally engaged the student feels, the more likely they are to, in a math class, persevere in a challenging problem.
Yeah.
or get
Right.
gritty in, a concept that they feel like they're really struggling with, right? So those
Big
skills
system.
that we want to teach, there is a correlation there. So it does pay in dividends, right?
Absolutely.
But when you
Absolutely.
were talking about all of I'm taking notes here. I'm like, wow, the happiness paradox. I love it. And just about that mindset about having to keep on accumulating more and always trying to fill our own bucket, right? We actually feel much more emptier, right?
Yeah. And
When we're
so
just
so
filling our own bucket.
the way that it was a metaphor that I'm stealing from somebody is that um the bigger we make other people's problems to us, the further away our problems are to us.
Hmm.
Does that make sense? If you're focusing on other people's stuff, your stuff seems farther away. But the
Right.
more you focus on your stuff, the closer your problems are to your face, the bigger they feel. It's like a big mind trick as we feel like self-preservation is the key, but self-preservation actually makes us less happy.
Absolutely. I think that's why I like to watch Maury Povich when I was younger because it's like if
Yeah,
anyone
make
has
you feel a
everyone
whole lot
else's
better.
problems.
That's
And I'm
right. They're like, "Whoa, I'm not that jacked up, man. That guy is the father." Yeah,
like,
man, Maury Povich. Or was that? Yeah, that was Maury Povich. You are not the father. I forgot all about that. Thanks for bringing that
oh
one
my
back.
that's where it all began, right? I mean, that was when I mean, and now we're obviously living in a world, which I really want you to talk to, is we're living in a world where we're constantly comparing ourselves to others. And now, of course, as you know, there's a ton of research coming out about social media and how it actually increases people's depression, there increases their feelings of isolation, and for teens, it can really lead to long-term problems like eating disorders or
Yeah. Yep.
anxiety. And so I didn't know if you had any advice
Yeah.
about SEL in the area of social media.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we do lessons for students. So my middle school curriculum is called In Control SEL. If you want to check it out, it's incontrolsel.com. So we talk a lot about that because in and of itself, a lot of our ugly things are kind of just hardwired into our brains. So the only way historically for the last bazillion years, humans have one way to know how they're doing. Humans have
Right.
one way to evaluate themselves and how their performance is. You can't evaluate yourself unless you look at somebody else.
Mm,
So up until probably about 1998, 2003-ish, I mean, you would have a limited amount of exposure to all of the stimuli in order to evaluate yourself. Now, if I pick up my phone and I just flip through my Instagram reels, I could do 4 million of those suckers in the next 12 minutes. And the problem is, and you know this, I'm not saying any groundbreaking like everyone's going to be like, "What?" But you're only getting everybody's best take.
absolutely.
You're not getting the real stuff. You're not getting, you know what I mean? And so we talk about social media, but we also talk about growth mindset. And so I'm sure you've heard of growth mindset. It's understanding that our brains will adapt if we give it more reps to whatever. If I want to learn how to knit a sweater underwater with scuba gear on, I could do it if I gave it enough reps.
Sure.
Um, but when we talk about growth mindset, it's understanding that you're probably not going to be great at something at first, and that is okay. That's totally fine. Is that some of the most famous people, like Oprah, her
I love
first
it.
gig, yeah, Oprah, yeah, like she got like it was like some producer was like, yeah, this just isn't for you. Walt Disney, they told him he was crazy. All these famous people, they were like, you know, if they stopped at
Rejection.
the first point of adversity, if you stop at your first point of adversity, you're going to have a really rough road. It's okay to fail. It's okay to learn from it. And it's whatever you're seeing out there in the world, that's not like people aren't nailing these things on their first take. Like Dude Perfect. Have you ever watched Dude Perfect before, Patricia?
No.
Dude Perfect is one of the most popular YouTube channels for kids and young adults. And so it's a group of 4 guys that are from Texas. And
Wow.
they started out just doing trick shots with basketballs. They did them
Oh,
in their backyard. They would throw it backwards over their head and they would make it. And then they put it on YouTube in the early days of YouTube and it would get thousands of views. Well, then they started seeing like, oh, there's something more to this. We can edit the videos and only show the ones that go in. And people were doing hundreds of thousands of views. Then they started getting fancy. They went up to like the tallest tower at TCU, Texas Christian, and they
right.
threw a ball off the top of the stadium into a basketball net until it went in. And it took them about 6 or 7 hours for them to get it to work. And they post the one that goes in, and Good Morning America wanted them on the show for it. But the cool thing is that it shows that with perseverance, you can pretty much do anything. The bad thing is that our students are seeing the one take, trying it and being like, oh, I'm not as good as them. What am I even going to try for?
Right. Yes. So one thing that I do when I work with kids is I show videos. I mean, and of course, this is like super surface level, but for example, I showed a video a few weeks ago to a group of middle schoolers. It was about a man. I can't remember his name. He was born with no arms and no legs.
What is
And,
his? I know who you're talking about. Yep.
and it's just like a 5-minute video, but he talks about his struggle, his emotional feelings of being depressed and wanting to give up. But and at the end, you see how he was able to accomplish everything that he had dreamed of. He wanted to, have a job. He wanted to get married. He wanted to have kids. He wanted
That's
to
right.
dance. He wanted to stand up. And you see in the video, he actually stands up.
Yeah.
And then I take something like that, and I have the kids write or reflect. And sometimes it's like,
That's good. And that is social and emotional learning. You just
right,
taught them grit, you taught them perseverance, you taught them social awareness by helping them to see that there are people like this out there. You're helping students to see that they can overcome things and that there's probably more inside of them than they know. That's social and emotional learning, Patricia. So it doesn't take a teacher of SEL. It doesn't take an SEL director. It doesn't take time out of your day. It's just these little things. It's stopping yourself and realizing that if I can raise one of these 5 competencies, the
right.
student's going to be better for it and they're going to perform better in my class.
Absolutely. So you talked about doing it immediately, getting to know your kiddos. I mean, I'm sure teachers have heard of student inventories, or
Yep.
I even do like a math activity where I'll do like this Thanksgiving project and related to ratios and rates. But then I ask them like, who are you going to invite to dinner? Like, what are you excited to
Yeah.
do? And just like 1 or 2
It's
extra
tough.
slides, things like that. What other advice or ideas should teachers consider? I know we kind of like we were talking about your
Sure.
simple
Yep.
ways, and I interrupted you.
Yeah, no. This is good. And so I would love to talk to the teachers a little bit about their own social emotional stuff because it's for some people it's been a really hard year and a
Mm.
half, 2 years. For some people it hasn't, but I think teachers as a whole, teaching is a grind.
Oh yeah.
Um, I don't know that I could have done it for much longer if I didn't transition full time into business. Um, so let me, if this is cool with you, it's your show. Is it cool if I give teachers some practicals for themselves?
Yeah,
For
let's
like the
do
next.
it. I
All right,
need it
cool.
now. I had a rough day.
Yeah, yeah. So here we go, educators. I'm just taking off. Let's take off the education hat and just put on the human hat. So whether you're really stressed now or not, or whether the holidays are a really stressful time for you or not, I want to give you 2 quick things that you can use now. You could use it right now after this show's over. You could use it tomorrow. You could use it on your holiday break. Because if we're being honest, holiday breaks aren't always that much easier than being in work. And I think if we're being honest as parents, sometimes at the end of a long break, you might be a little bit ready to go back and to send those kids back to school, especially with summer break. So let me talk to you a little bit about that. So the first thing I want to do is I want to help you to gain some self-awareness around your own emotions. Holidays can be a very emotionally charged time of year, whether that's you're out hustling and bustling, trying to shop, my wife was just at Home Depot at 8:30 at night trying to like fight somebody for a box of lights to finish the Christmas tree. But it's a crazy time of year. So what I want you to know, and I'll give you some applications on this, but emotions, all the emotions you have, whether it's anger, fear, happiness, sadness, delight, depression, and anything in between, it is a result of the difference between your expectations and reality. That's where emotions come from. If I tell my daughter as soon as she gets on the swing, it's time to get off the swing, she's probably going to cry because for a 6-year-old, her expectation was that she was going to have this joyous thing for like 30 minutes on this swing. Um, when our expectations aren't met, small or large, the amount to which they are or aren't met are exactly proportional to the emotion that we have. So let me give you some holiday examples. This might be relatable, it might not. But when you buy a bunch of presents, I know that we're budgeting probably too much money on gifts for our kids this year. We're just, we feel like we should. So we're going to spend a lot of money. If my kid on Christmas morning flips out and says, "Ew, I don't like this," I don't know how you would feel. I'd probably have steam coming out of my ears. Well, think about that. It's because we're programmed up we're thinking about this like Hallmark card moment where our kids are going to be tearing through the gift wrap and they're going to be hugging each other and they're going to be hugging us. And then they're going to be so happy with all of their new toys and gifts that they are going to be little angels for the next 14 days over Christmas break. But when that doesn't happen, when our expectations aren't met about how things are supposed to be going, our emotions get stirred up. So I'm not telling you to have low expectations for your kids. I'm just saying that I want you to have an understanding that what we call it is a covert contract. If you give something to somebody, they have to give something to you in return. If I give my kids a lot of gifts, they have to be well behaved. If I work on Christmas dinner for 6 hours, then my mother-in-law better come over appreciative. If I drive through the snow to get to a family dinner, everybody better just be so amazingly grateful to me for getting there. We align our expectations, and then when they're not met, which they don't need to be met, people don't owe us things, that's when our emotions arise. And I think that can happen a lot over the holidays because expectations can run so high around the holidays. Does that make sense? So
yeah,
just,
I had that experience recording.
Yeah.
So I think what you're saying is having that mindfulness, whether you're, in the classroom teaching and, be realistic with what your expectations, or in your own personal life, be realistic with where everyone's at. Have that self-awareness, right?
That's right. How many times have you created this unbelievable lesson until 11 p.m. and your slides are clicking? You got animations and YouTube videos and TED Talks and black light math assignments and all kinds of
Breakout room.
Yeah, escape. Yeah, you got an escape room and then the kids are like this.
Yeah.
And they're just bored. And you're like, what? Because of that expectation you had in your head. If I stay up until 11 p.m. creating the escape room of their dreams, they better be awesomely happy about it. So yeah, it's just knowing the realities and just right. I like what you said is just knowing where you're at and having the self-awareness. And when you feel those emotions arise, it's like at least you know where they come from, and that will really help in and of itself. So
absolutely. And I think educators need to, well, even myself, right? Even myself, within that mindset is how do we detach from having those expectations? Because even if you are up at 11, you might get to school the next day and, something happened where your kids are just set off because maybe there was a fight in the yard or, some type of drama that happened. And it's not going to go that way because their emotional needs are always going to trump your academic agenda. I mean, that's just my experience. That's what I've found.
And it's unfortunate, but yeah, I think we have control over that. We have control over ourselves and how we respond to it. So that's good. So the second thing, for a lot of educators I've worked with, they have kids or they have family in town for the holidays, and the proximity. And I mean, even over the last couple of years when we were really quarantining and we were on home lockdown orders and stuff like that, is the proximity was like a pressure cooker at times. So I think the holidays can sometimes feel like that for some people. If you have a lot of family in town, you have a lot of kids, maybe your brother's bringing all his kids over. So what I want to do is I want to introduce you to an idea called an emotional safety plan. So we plan for so many things, don't we? We plan for our next day. We plan for our next month. We plan our weddings. We plan our vacations. We plan funerals. We plan all kinds of things. But we don't plan for when things, when we have heated disagreements with our loved ones. And the reason I think is because I'd like to just get in it and get out of it and forget it ever happened, because like life is too short, and I just don't want to be in that space for too long. And I sure as heck don't want to spend time planning it, like planning for it. That seems like a real waste of time. But some of the things that come out of our mouths, I'm sure you've had instances like this, and I have too, is that sometimes when you say things, you just really wish you could get them back and you can't. And as much as you wish that they didn't stick with people, they do. And the last thing that we want to do is we want to say something that sticks with our child and and hurts their growth, whether that's social growth, emotional growth, academic growth, spiritual growth, whatever. Is that I just want to give you a couple easy practical things that you can do that you can kind of minimize those ugly moments when us as parents or brothers or sisters or educators or whoever. This could even work in the classroom if you slightly modify it. But here's a couple elements of an emotional safety plan. The first thing that you want to do is you want to have a statement. So when I say have a statement, have something short, sweet, easy to remember to say when you know that things are getting heated with your kid, in your classroom, with your own child, with a sibling, with a mother-in-law, with whoever.
Right.
Something short, sweet, easy to say, easy to remember, something that was even mentally rehearsed. Because when your amygdala in your brain, it's the word amygdala comes from the Latin word that means almond, because it's about the shape of an almond and the size of an almond in the base of your brain. When that fight or flight or fear center starts firing, it hijacks your brain and it shuts down your ability to logically think and react.
There you go.
So knowing that, you can just say something like, Dad needs a minute. Mom's got to take 5. Please just take a timeout right now. I'm going to give myself a timeout right now. Or have something short, sweet, to the point, easy to say that you can kind of spit out in an automated fashion. Because again, you're like, what were you thinking? How many times do people say that to you? Or like, you need to think before you speak. Well, we literally, scientifically, neuroscience shows that we can't.
Right. And so I hear, and I even had like a student teacher that I was working with a few years back, and he had a hard time with his principal.
Yeah.
It was like they were going toe to toe, and he felt like he was constantly being scrutinized
Yeah.
and attacked by this administrator. And as you know, he didn't he wasn't have his clear credentials, so he's kind of on the probation status.
Sure.
So what would you even say if there's teachers out there that are working with, either administrator or colleague, that maybe they're feeling like that relationship has really gotten toxic? Like, how do you turn that around? Or do you just let go and move on?
So continuing with this plan to give you some application points, some things that you can do. So the first thing you do is you have that statement. The second thing is that you have somewhere to go to de-escalate. And so in a school, if you have some kind of way, shape, or form, I think everybody would appreciate for you to ask for this ability to say, hey, I need somebody to tap me out, tag me out, whatever you want to call it. If it's at home, you have somewhere you can go, whether that's your spare bedroom, whether that's outside on your porch, whether that's in your attic or basement, or something, but physically removing yourself from that situation.
Right.
That's step 2. Step 3 is, again, having that self-awareness of what helps you to come back down. Listen to some music. You listen to Christian rock. You could listen to a podcast. You could listen to the sounds of an ocean. You could do some deep breathing. You could just take 5 minutes. They say that it takes usually on average anywhere from 7 to 12 minutes to metabolize all of those brain chemicals that are you have an adrenaline dump essentially.
I see.
Drink some water. That helps to metabolize the chemicals that are flushing around in your body when you're in one of those heated moments.
Right.
That's really helpful. But
That's really fascinating to hear
the
about
big
that.
idea is that you need a plan. You need to, because again, you're not going to be able to think on your toes. You can't, as much as you'd like to, cognitively separate your anger and your logical brain. You have one brain. You can't chop it into pieces. As much as people think they are good at separating these things or kind of creating space and flipping to the other side of their brain, or
Sure.
you have one brain. It's one big piece.
So it sounds like a lot of that self-awareness as a teacher, and that could even play into, if you have a student that's really challenging for you,
That's right.
and they're pressing your buttons,
That's right.
or doing things that you feel like, I'm really getting uncomfortable. And so having that plan in place, maybe working with, I know when I was in the classroom, I had my neighbor, we would kind of tag team each other, the classroom neighbor, or working with your administrator if you have a supportive administrator, so you have this plan of de-escalation in place.
That's right, man. And I think your boss would, I think some bosses, I won't even say most, but I think some bosses would appreciate you saying like, hey, if I'm feeling like I'm going to lose my marbles, is there somebody that I can like tag in instead of losing my what on a group of students in front of a whole bunch of people?
Right.
I think a good leader should want to give you that tool. And, when you're calm, when you're not in crisis mode, I think asking for that in a calm way, I think a good leader should respect that you're asking for that.
Absolutely. And I would believe that most teachers probably come into the classroom, I would say beginning teachers, with the mindset they have to be perfect, right?
Right.
They got hired, they want to keep their job, so they
Yeah,
want
they don't want to admit that they have a weakness or something, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And
Very.
so what you're saying is start building those channels of communication so that you can get support. Because the reality is that we do need lifelines when we're in the classroom. And we do need lifelines in our own personal life. Like I call my BFF, who also happens to be a counselor, and I'm always joking with her. I'm like, where did I get a therapist when I have a BFF that's actually a licensed clinical marriage therapist?
You better be careful. She's going to send you a bill.
Yeah. But no, I appreciate everything that you shared. I think it's so important and that whole idea of, what, we have to be self-aware as teachers, and then explicitly teaching those five CASEL
competencies.
Competencies: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and decision making.
That's SEL.
And you have a program out there, so I want you to talk a little bit about that program and what teachers can find in that program that would help them in this profession.
Yeah, absolutely. So as a counselor, I found the need because, teachers don't have the time, and some of them don't feel comfortable delivering social and emotional learning direct instruction. So what I did is I created, it's called In Control SEL, where it's a catalog of videos. They're 5-minute videos, and they end in really lighthearted discussion prompts. So it's really a school-wide SEL program. If you have an advisory period or a homeroom period, it works wonders. It's zero teacher prep. It comes with a whole lot of cool supplemental things that help the parents. It gives them things to talk about with their kids at home. It helps the teachers to understand it better, so it'll benefit them and in their classrooms. But again, the big idea is that it's zero teacher prep. So they're fun videos. They're fun communicators. It's not just me. It's like a bunch of like fun, young, hip people. I'm not saying I'm fun, young, or hip, but we hired some really great communicators, some relatable people that the middle schoolers love. And we have the same thing at high school. So the middle school, again, that's incontrolsel.com. You can actually download some free stuff on the website. If you scroll down a little bit, there's a month's free curriculum. Feel free to try it out and play around with it. And I think you'll see that it'll bump the relationships in any class. And then for high school, it's essentially the same model, but the lessons are a little bit different. They're tailored to the issues that are going on in high schoolers' life. Things more like how to balance their schedule and prioritize things, how to make decisions about their post-secondary options, how to get along better with parents and teachers, how to utilize the people in your building as people that'll help, how to manage stress, stuff like that. So that's called Can Do You. So it's 3 words. It's CAN, then DO, D as in dog, O, like you can do it. So it's Can Do You as in university. So it's CANDO, the letter U.US. And again, you can get some free samples on there too. Hopefully it helps you guys. If you ever need to reach out to me, you can go Jeff at jeffbecker.org.
Awesome. Well, I didn't know about that. I mean, that sounds like a phenomenal curriculum, because I'm always hearing from secondary folks, how can I teach these skills? And as you shared, with minimum prep, with relevancy to their lives, to what's happening right now. And I think it's phenomenal. I'm definitely going to check it out. I have 2 middle school kids at my house, so I'm going to be using that. And I'm so glad that you were able to come on the show tonight, Jeff. Thank you so much. And I hope to have you back on again soon. Have a Merry Christmas.
Patricia, the pleasure was all mine. You're doing amazing work, and I'm honored to be here. And hopefully this helped somebody. If it did, awesome. I'm here for it all day.
Absolutely. Well, that's what we're in this game for. So make it happen. Jeff Becker, thank you so much for joining me. Bye-bye.